On this episode, we'll discuss how ministry leaders can create spiritual impact on social media. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm excited to be co-hosting today with Jessica Moore. How are you, Jess?
I'm doing good, Kendall. It's Friday. We're recording on a Friday. Love it.
Yes, we typically don't record on a Friday, so I feel like we're going to bring some of that Friday energy today,
I know.
right?
I love it. This is kind of like my last big thing on my list today. So, yeah.
Well, good. We're going to make it count. This is going to be a great end to the week. And so we've got a great guest that's going to be joining us here today. It's actually a returning guest to the podcast. You'll have to go back, all of our listeners, go back and check out his previous episode because there's a lot of great content there. But today on the show, we're going to have the privilege of having Nils Smith with us. And if you haven't connected with him before, I want to tell you all about him. Nils Smith is a social media strategist. He's a digital marketing expert, and he helps churches, nonprofits, and businesses maximize technology for their mission. He's the founder of Amplify Social Media. He has led strategy at Dunham and Company, and now he serves as vice president of marketing at Faith Driven Movements. Nils lives in New York City with his wife and his two daughters. Today, we're going to be talking about how ministry leaders can create spiritual impact on social media. I'm excited to jump in, Jess. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I did listen to the last episode, and I've only heard amazing things about Nils. So, yeah,
it's going to be really good. Before we jump in, really quickly, I want to encourage all of our listeners to hit the follow button wherever you're enjoying our show. We want to make sure that you stay in the loop as we continue to release these conversations and provide our valuable resources because they can just really do so much right there for you in your church, in your community. And subscribing is really the best way to make sure that you do not miss a thing. So without further ado, let's welcome Nils. How are you today, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to jump in this conversation. How does it feel to return to the show? Got some new faces around here since last time.
I appreciate you guys having me back. And and I Kendall, I really like your haircut and the hairstyle. It's a good look for a podcast that you and I share.
You know what? This is where the value of having the video portion of this podcast comes in because who wouldn't want to see, a couple of good-looking guys like this? That's what I say.
Yeah,
you gotta go to YouTube.
That was exactly my thought. Is the benefit of watching on YouTube? You get to see Kendall and all
at this point, if they're hearing, that we're bringing the Bald Brothers look happening here, they're probably just going to stay over on Spotify or Apple. Oh, I love it. Well, I'm excited to jump in and talk about some social media today. It's going to be a great topic, and I know that you are just, an expert on this topic. I'm excited to get into the content. But before we do, this, being on the show before, something that we always like to ask, we read that public bio, but what's something beyond that bio that all your family and friends would know about you?
Yeah, so we're going into a 3-day weekend, and one of the things that I love that people often don't know is I am a puzzler. So I'm a digital guy, always on technology, but I love to get out a physical puzzle, or we play board games a lot in my house. And so we play a little Yahtzee, a little Monopoly, and we'll be pulling out a puzzle this weekend. And so when we get a long weekend or spring break, we puzzle in our house. So
I love that. And that's the kind of thing for us at our house when we do that, because we're the same way. We like to spread it out across the dining room table, right? And it just lives there over something like a long weekend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love puzzles. This is one of my love languages. And my husband, bless his heart, is red-green colorblind. So puzzles are so frustrating for him, but it's one of those things that I'm like, if you love me, you will sit down and do the puzzle with me. So for our anniversary, we just had our anniversary on August 15th, and he bought me 2 puzzles, and he's like, I am committing to, in our 16th year of marriage, help you do puzzles. And I was like, this is the best day ever.
That is love if I've ever seen it.
I know. It was really so romantic.
Nils, you also said Monopoly in that, and I just want to point out, I got to know. I mean, like that brings nothing but tension for my family. Like my boys, like I feel like if we're gonna like start to fighting over the Monopoly. Is it like that for you guys?
It's so it's my youngest daughter and my 13-year-old who plays Monopoly with me. The others don't. So we play actually, I don't know, it's called Monopoly Go. It's like the card game. So it's a shorter version of Monopoly. And then the other is a game called Play 9. My sister got me into Play 9, and it's like a golf version game, but it's another card game.
I haven't heard of that one.
And so we play games that you could typically play in about 15, 20 minutes. And so our attention spans are shorter. And so we have a good time, but there'll be a lot of board games and puzzling going on this weekend.
Love that.
Man. Yeah, I love that too. Man, you're kind of inspiring me now. I want to go home and like break out the Monopoly board, and long weekend for us going at the time of this recording. I'm like, okay, we could get in a really long game of Monopoly.
Yeah,
as long as
they work. It works good at camping too. If you're camping, we went camping, we brought some cards out, and you play some Yahtzee while camping, and so
that's
whatever you're doing.
That's a good tip.
It's a good. But keep the phones away is my theory of as much as I love the digital.
I love it.
I love to put the devices away when Dad's home.
Yes. Well, that again, it's inspiring me. All right, I want to jump into talking about social media. You've invested so much of your life into equipping churches and these ministry leaders, and I'd love to know just like kind of what drives that deeper purpose for you, especially when it comes to using things like digital and social media for ministry.
Yeah, I would say I definitely wasn't, drawn necessarily to technology. I often describe my entry into digital ministry happening in 1999 when I was a youth minister. I was 19 years old, and we had 2 kids in the youth group, and they introduced me to this unique new platform called AOL Instant Messenger, and they said that's where me and all my friends are. And so I went and set up a handle. And that summer, being a youth pastor, I saw a dozen kids accept Christ in this chat room on AIM. And I didn't have a digital ministry plan. I didn't have, and we went from 2 to about 40 youth in our Wednesday night program, pretty much all because I got on AIM and they were on AIM and their friends were on AIM. And so that for me, and it wasn't, I wasn't looking at ROI and stats like that. I was just literally looking at where can I reach teenagers? And that was AIM. Well, then that developed as I was in youth ministry for about a decade into MySpace, and then that developed into Facebook, and I just went to where people were and where they were going for the people I was supposed to reach. And the reality is, it stopped being just something that teenagers were using; it started being something that we all started using.
Yes.
And what I found in ministry, and then about 15 years ago, I was asked to take those learnings and try to figure out how you could do church online. And I knew, my friends at Life Church were doing this, and a couple, a few other people were tinkering with it, but nobody else was really doing it. So we were able to buy the domain onlinechurch.com, and we leaned into this new website called facebook.com. And I said, I think this Facebook thing is going to catch on. And we built a church on the internet, and we just began reaching people really efficiently and effectively. And so and then other people started asking me, group publishing asked me to write a book. And now I don't encourage anybody to read my book because I talk about MySpace and, so other platforms that don't exist anymore. It's literally 13 years old, talking about social media for ministry, but I just kept using these tools, and they, honestly, the more I use them, the more effective, and honestly, the more people have continued to embrace social media, and ministries beginning to find opportunities to engage with it. And so, I think there's plenty of places to debate whether it's healthy or not. And like when I go home, I want my kids off of social media. But what I do know is, since 1999, I have yet to find a more effective tool to reach people in our world with the gospel than social media. And so that's it's the ROI, it's kind of the bottom line answer to that question. It's and the truth is, people often ask me, like, how much does it cost? It's free, but it costs you your time, to build relationships.
Right.
And I mean, what incredible opportunity we have, though.
Well, I just want to say, number one, it's very admirable that you were willing to try something new, right? And you had the passion in the conviction to, try to go, to the ends of the earth digitally to
Yeah.
be able to spread that message that you were passionate about. And, I think it's something for all of our listeners today to kind of take away from this, like, it's no longer AIM, right? It's no longer
Yes.
MySpace. It's no longer all these things. The things are always changing.
Right.
But I would be asking, like, what's next, or what's now? What can you get into today that maybe you have to do some figuring out, right? You got to do some research. You got to try it out. But if you've got the passion and that heart to go out there and just spread that message, there's plenty of opportunity, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think back to even those AIM days. I had to literally, I didn't have a computer at home, in those days, much less a
Wow.
smartphone. I
Yeah.
went to we had one computer in our church. It was the secretary. We used the word secretary back then, secretary's desk. And I used the AIM CD to get on the, World Wide Web.
Wow. Wow.
And today
That's
we
amazing.
all have a phone in our pocket. We all have,
Yes.
Mhm.
and so it's accessible for anyone to get on social media, and it's also accessible where everyone is already, connected. And so I just think the opportunity, and one, I think
Yes.
we often will see this as there's a global opportunity, which is
Yeah.
amazing and awesome. But I think that it's the local opportunity too. Is before we go to any restaurant, my wife will not go to a restaurant without
Mm.
first knowing what she's going to order, because she's already checked the menu, she's checked the
Yes.
reviews, she's checked everything.
Right.
And that's what we do
Sure.
before we do anything. We check it online. And we don't often just even check their website of what they're going to say about themselves. We check what Yelp says and what others have said about it and what our
Mm.
friends are saying. And so I think it's just the world we're living in today, and the opportunity for those ministry leaders that decide, you know what, I'm gonna make sure I'm prioritizing this opportunity rather than just
Mm.
kind of passively, like, I'll do what I have to do,
Yes.
but really see it as an opportunity.
That's good. That's a good
Oh,
reminder.
yeah. It is a very good reminder. I know that, for our listeners today, they may say, well, okay, like every ministry these days is on social media, or like there's so
Yeah.
many of us who are on social media, but not everybody is using it to make an impact, using it to, spread the gospel, or using it to even to let their community know that there's a church there for them that's available. Why do you think when it comes to making a spiritual impact online, it's important for churches to lean into this?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. I think one of the stats that I heard recently, and don't quote me on this because I don't know it's exact, but it's somewhere around 2 hours to 2.5 hours a day is the average amount of time that Americans spend on social media. And I think even from one platform, TikTok alone is typically about an hour a day. And I hear debates if that doesn't even include YouTube, because they don't consider YouTube
Sure.
necessarily a
Mhm.
social network. And so
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're spending a lot of time on the internet, and a lot of that time is on social media. And so, if we think about the people we want to reach, they're on social media, and we think about the people that are in our pews, and engaged in our church, they're also on social media. And so, when we think about evangelism opportunities, I think I want to go to where the people in our community are spending 15 hours a week. And when I
Yes.
think about
Yes.
discipleship opportunities, I want to go to where our people are spending 15 hours a week. And I think we don't have to wait until somebody is sitting in our pew to minister to them. And I
Mhm.
think it's different when they're sitting in the pew. Maybe we get an hour with them. When they're on their device scrolling through our feed, maybe we get 15 seconds with them. But you can do
Mm.
more ministry in 15 seconds than I think you realize. And
Mm.
rarely is somebody going to go sit in the pew before they've already connected with you online. And maybe that's the algorithm bring them to you. Maybe it's a friend that shared a video with them or
Yes.
a picture with them. But
Yeah.
I think that we have this opportunity for both an evangelism perspective and a discipleship perspective and a fellowship perspective and a
Yes.
missional perspective. I think there's so much opportunity when we just see it as kind of a place that people
Mhm.
are spending time
Mm.
where we can just engage with them where they are.
Mm.
I love that. And, there is so much opportunity. You mentioned that when you first started, when you first had the success with AIM, I believe you said you were
Yeah.
19 years old at the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I want to encourage all of our folks that are listening today that you may have heard that and thought, okay, well, this is only something that a young person can do.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a story really quickly. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to connect with a pastor friend of mine that's around 70 years old, still pastoring, lead pastor of a church. And he inspired me so much because he was telling me all about how he's been using the Captions app on his smartphone
Yep.
to make quick reels from the church during the week so that he can put out he's making quick summaries, little bites from his message that week that he records standing in his church's sanctuary, his auditorium, records selfie mode, standing in there, and breaks down different parts of his message from that week so that he can continue to make an impact all throughout the week. And I just was so inspired by that because a lot of times we get hung up, right? We think that like, okay, well, like I can't learn new things or I can't try something new. But man, if you have that passion to try to get that out, the technology is there, and I think it's more accessible than ever, and it may be easier than ever.
Yeah, hearing both of those, your thoughts, is refreshing because I think a lot of times the conversation is you have to be on social media to be known, to have to increase your numbers or whatever the motivation is. And I think I'm hearing you both saying that I think the better approach is not to worry about the growth, not to worry. That shouldn't be your motivator. It really should be people are there and they need to be ministered to, right? And so how can we leverage this tool for that? And then God can handle the rest with growth and numbers and anything else that can be done through that. But because if you're thinking about social media outside of the church, if you're thinking about it for for-profit businesses, so on and so forth, it really is for exposure to continue to build your client base a lot of times and just awareness about your brand or whatever. With the church, it's tempting to also see it as only that, but it's not. And I think, Nils, you're saying the people are there, right? The harvest is there. And Kendall, you're saying this sweet pastor is saying, I see the people that are there and I see what they need. And I see a tool that can help me fill that need, right? So that's a really interesting kind of mental shift that hopefully is a relief to anyone listening. Because if you're just looking at how it's impacting your growth and your numbers, that's going to take a lot of the heart out of it, right? That's a hard game to run. I mean, Kendall knows he manages social media here at Ministry Brands. I've did that, I did that as a subcontractor before, and it's a hard gig. So if that's what you're looking at, it can be disheartening. If you can look beyond that and see the people that you're impacting, I think should be way more encouraging.
And I think this is where some people so often miss it, is that they just see the follower count and they just see the impression count or the number of likes. But when you think of it, it is, and I remember there was a church that I was working with, and I literally, they had such huge reach, but they weren't valuing, how much impact it was. And one of the visuals we created for them is that we created a visual of Madison Square Garden, and we were like, your church is basically reaching 3 Madison Square Gardens totally sold out on Sunday morning with your live stream. And that visual gave them an understanding of the impact of the Madison Square Garden. And you think about all the people sitting there, but they just saw a number of 87,000, there. And it's like, it's just a number. But then when you begin to think about it as like a person and a body and a soul and, there's so much more impact to that. And Kendall, what you're talking about earlier too, is that I think the other thing I hear from pastors and ministry leaders is that I want to get on social media to become relevant. Like they think social media or TikTok is going to make them relevant, and it doesn't do that. But I do think the beauty of social media is it is all ages now, and so there are platforms where maybe you can reach another generation. But I think about who spends the most time on social media today in my world, and that's my mother-in-law. I bet she spends 3 hours a day just on Facebook, and so it is really across generations of people that are on social media. And I think that's part of the unique opportunity of where people are, where they're spending their time, and the opportunity that we have to engage them in a lot of different ways. And I think the other piece that we often miss is that it's social, so we think about what the purpose of the church is, and it is connection with other people. It's not to just blast our message. That's a tool, an opportunity we have, just like we have speakers in our worship centers, but I think we have this opportunity to create relational connection with people, and that's what social media was built for.
That's so good.
It is. That is so different then what I think a lot of times can happen for churches is that social media turns into just another bulletin board
Yeah.
Mhm.
for our announcements. We think like, okay, well, we have so many of our folks from our congregation on our Facebook or following us on Instagram or wherever it may be, that like, okay, we've got to put every announcement there. And before, if you're not careful, it can turn into just that bulletin board.
Right,
Eh,
Yeah.
right.
You're saying that if okay, social media as a tool to get the word out about things is one thing, right? But to create a spiritual impact, you have to take it in a different direction. You have to have a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the reality is if you go to church on a Sunday and they spend half their time in announcements, first you're going to tune out in the middle of the service, and then you're not going to come back. You're not
Mm,
there for announcements. Now you need the announcements because you need to
Mhm,
yeah,
know what next steps you take
mhm.
beyond that service. But at the end of the day, you're there for spiritual inspiration. You're there
yeah,
to hear from God and to
yep,
connect with other believers. And so I think if somebody follows you on social media, they're not following you to get your announcements.
yeah,
They'll
Mhm.
subscribe to your email list if they want to get announcements from your church. And even that, I would guard against just giving announcements. But at the end of the day, use these platforms to minister first. And I think about the early days of social media where I had such unique success, and people would ask me, what are you doing? We had a CBC Online is what we called our original online church. And they're like, and we grew organically to about 800,000 followers on Facebook. And people
Wow.
asked what we
wow,
did. And I said, we minister first. We post Bible verses. This is pre like even graphics on Facebook. It was
yeah,
all text. And we just
yeah,
posted quotes and Bible verses when every other church was just saying, hey, come to church. Come to church at 11 a.m. Come to church on
right.
Sunday. And they would just say, come to
Potluck.
church in different ways. And there was a reason nobody was following them and nobody was sharing
Yes,
their post, but they were sharing the Bible verses and they're sharing the quotes and they were sharing
that's right.
things that were ministering to them. And I think we've got to, I think practically there's an algorithm game to play here.
Yeah,
And when people like your content, when they share your content, when they comment on your content, the algorithms say your content is meaningful and it's
That's
valuable.
right.
And so when we post meaningful content that people like, Facebook is actually going to be one of our greatest evangelism, tools. And I say
Yes,
Facebook, it's any of the algorithms with
yes,
these platforms. And so we at the end of the day, we can just focus, and we're already, I think it's one of the most valuable things that churches are doing that connect to social media. We're already creating great content with our sermon every Sunday
right.
that
yes,
gives us a foundation for if we can utilize that effectively on these
that's right.
platforms, they fit well into the algorithms.
That's such solid advice too, because for any creator that's out there that's running, trying to create content for social media, they're having to come up with brand new content every single week. Well, it just so turns out that churches, we're already experts in this, right? We're already putting in the work of
Yeah.
creating that content every 7 days, right?
Mhm.
And so you can get so much more life out of that message that your pastor worked, put hours of work into by just extending the life of it. What Bible verses from that specific uh, sermon could you share this week on social that are going to continue that same message that God spoke to pastor, right? And said,
Mhm.
this is the
Yeah.
message for this community for this week. What points could we bring? What quotes can we pull from it? What clips could we clip out of that? All those things, or as the pastor said, let me give a quick recap. We've done that right after church. Sometimes our pastor will go side stage and say, "Okay, let me give you a quick recap. If you missed today, here's point one, point two, point three," and we've seen that have big success, right? Like anything you
Yep.
can do to get more life out of the work that's already been done, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I know that I've heard you talk about the difference between just kind of like existing on some social platforms and actually building and growing an online community. Can you kind of unpack that thought for us a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is being present, and so I think one of the things that we often have done is we will just kind of show up somewhere and then we'll disappear, and so or
Mm,
we'll I think about tools like when I first got into social media, Hootsuite was a tool that a lot of people would use, and they would just create a post it everywhere, and that was it, and they would just keep posting, but they never listen to what somebody said or
Mm.
did. And I think about one of the most effective tools that churches have had through the years is a receptionist. And so people would call the church and they would know somebody would be there to answer the phone. And one of the things that we have done with social media is we've used the megaphone of social media, but we haven't used the telephone, side of it. So
Mhm.
we don't listen to the comments. We don't respond when people direct message us. And it's my belief that the best ministry is happening online in the DMs. I'd say the second
Wow.
best is in the comments. And so I think this is where the community is forming. And so it's almost like if we just had church and we are like, hey, everybody come in for the sermon. And then when we gave the invitation, we didn't respond to them when they were coming, and
Right.
sharing their
Right.
life story. We just
Yeah.
ignored them.
Yeah.
And we said, you guys have to leave now because we're done talking to you.
Mm.
And we don't want you to talk to each other and we don't really want to hear from you. And I think we've got to treat social media like we do our spaces as a very welcoming place,
Mm.
at a place that people can respond and talk back, and that we're going to be present with them. And I think the truth is that's hard. It's much easier to talk one way at someone. My
Yeah.
marriage would maybe be easier. My wife would tell you my marriage would be easier if I didn't talk back to her, and she would just tell me what to do and I would do it. But that's not the way relationships work. We talk
That's right.
two ways, and we listen and respond to each other. And so I think we've got to do that with social media. We've got to, I think we have lots of content to engage people and reach people, but we've got to be available to deepen relationships. I think the other thing that churches don't do enough of is empowering their people
Mm.
they're scared to give people access, and it's almost like, well, I don't want anybody else responding to the comments or the
Mm.
messages, or I don't want to even we want to can we just turn off the comments? And
Interesting.
I think we need to empower people, and I say that we need to empower volunteers. I think we
Yes.
hoard too much. I think, and we empower volunteers to be greeters in our church, but we don't do the same thing online. And
Mm.
so I think we need to really think about how can we empower people to be a part of our digital ministry like we do our in-person ministries.
What an interesting thought.
I've never heard them compared to greeters before, but
Yeah.
it makes so much sense. I love that. Uh, just be, getting volunteers involved. Number one, I think there's probably some pastors, some staff members who are listening to this today, and they just are hearing this as more work. This sounds
Yep.
like, oh man, this just sounds like another thing I'm going to have to spend time during my week. But I think the real power is leaning into volunteers, as you said. There are people that are in your church that God has put those gifts in. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
sometimes it stretches us to have to spend that time investing in them, training them. But man, the outcome is so much greater than you just adding more things onto your schedule, right? Like
Yeah.
there's the opportunity there to share that ministry, to get them involved, to
Yeah.
give them some ownership. And you're going to learn some lessons along the way. They're going to learn some lessons and you're going to learn some lessons, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just part of it, but you're making a difference. And again, there's just so much ministry opportunity. And
Yeah.
you know,
We
sometimes
would often promote online ministry volunteering to our church as the only volunteer opportunity within our church that you can do in your PJs. So we'd have some
Love
fun
it.
with it. And there was people would hear that and be like, oh, I don't,
Yeah.
like, because they'll
yeah.
think I don't have time
Yeah.
for this. I don't.
Right.
But you know what? I could do this at 10 o'clock at night, or I could do
Yeah.
this after the kids go to bed, or I could do this before I go to work. And so it gave you a unique opportunity. The best online ministry volunteer I ever had was a lady named Ruthie, and she was in her early 80s. She had an
Oh.
iPad. I remember her coming to me and just saying, I don't know how this iPad works. I set up a Facebook account one time, but I'd love to help you volunteer because I can't do these other things I used to do. And I used to be a
Mm.
missionary, and it sounds like digital missions to me. And she just became basically our our digital receptionist for
That's
social
the
media. And the
sweetest.
reality is, we often want to give it to young people because we think they understand social media. But Ruthie was spiritually mature. She was
Yeah.
available, and she could. The
Wow.
technology is not the complicated part. We didn't need somebody that knew how to
Yes.
click buttons well. We could teach her how to do that. Well, we needed
Wow.
somebody who was willing, who was like cared about the people that were DMing
Mm.
us. And she was honestly, she was better than any staff member I could have hired to do that role. And she was
Incredible.
just so faithful for some. She ended up getting cancer, passing, but for the last like 3 years of her life, she lived in our DMs, just ministering to people day after day, and it was so fun. And I think we're missing out on unique opportunities for people like Ruthie, to really engage and that every day she would come to me and she just said, "Thank you for letting me
Oh,
do this." And so it just was
how
such a
precious.
cool opportunity.
That would be like the sweetest thing ever, I think, if I were messaging a church and a sweet older lady was the
Yes.
one that was on. I was like, I think I'd be just incredibly happy. Another thought, really quick, is you know, I feel like a lot of the structure of serving at a church, there's an expectation that you need to be extroverted. So this may be a great opportunity for those
Yeah.
introverts at your church that don't want to be greeting people or, leading
Yes.
children's ministry or whatever, and just they don't have to be on the forefront. They don't want to be in the limelight and just be able to minister to people quietly behind the scenes. I love that.
Yeah. If we're honest, there are probably some people, and I'm going to say the quiet part out loud, but there's some people we might not want to put in public
Yeah.
greeting roles. But this is a good opportunity for those people that may be a little socially awkward, and so
Yeah.
and to even steer them towards this role,
Yeah.
that can give them something to own. But doesn't put them in a situation that's not natural for them from a serving standpoint.
And it's just as needed. Like it's a critical piece that
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of churches aren't really thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just as important, if not in a different way, more important, right? Because there's so much opportunity and not enough service there. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great.
So powerful. I know that I've seen on your website, Nils, that you have a resource that talks about some of the top mistakes that folks can make on social media, and we can link that up if that's still available. I'm just kind of curious for ministry leaders, what are some of those top mistakes on social media that that you could share with us for them to avoid?
Yeah, the first one that I continue to go back to, and I think this has changed a lot since the pandemic, but that's villainizing new technology. I would say I
Mm,
spent a lot of my kind of early day. I mean, I was called so many times a heretic, for doing online
Yeah.
church,
wow.
and really, and I remember talking to church. I remember having a conversation with a church member early days of he said, why is the church encouraging people to have affairs? And I was like, excuse me. And he said, well,
Whoa.
because you're doing
Wow.
ministry on Facebook, you're supporting what people are doing on Facebook. And I have a friend who had an affair because of Facebook. And the reality is, technology is neither good or bad.
Right.
Right.
Technology, just like anything else, is going to be used for good and bad.
Right.
And I think when the internet, was birthed, it was used predominantly for pornography, and for many years that
Mm,
was the number one thing, and that
Wow.
social media surpassed that. But we've seen the internet used for terrible use, and
right.
it continues to be
Sure.
used for really bad things. Also continues to be used for really great things.
Mhm.
I
That's
think
right.
we're in a day right now where AI, is really entering, and I think there's this tension where there's like, you know what, I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't know about it, and I'm going to villainize it and
Mhm.
resist
Mm,
it. And I think at the end of the day, AI, in my opinion, is not good or bad. If AI gives us opportunities that are going to create efficiencies and do
sure.
some good things, and AI is going to do some. I mean, there's people dating their AI chatbots, and just
Oh,
disgusting, things that
yeah.
we could compare to like the early days of
Right.
pornography. And so I think we have opportunities though to
Mhm.
understand these technologies, and if we're so quick to villainize though, we're going to
Mhm.
miss the unique opportunity to get behind it. That's where I saw the pandemic though. So many churches were like, okay, I have to adopt social media now. And then they start
Right.
saying,
Right.
okay, maybe it's not all so bad. Maybe it gives me a
Right.
unique opportunity. I'm seeing more acceptance to new technology, but I would say that the biggest mistake that I see people make is just quickly villainizing new technology. And
Mm.
I think we do the same thing.
Sure.
And I'll tell you an example of when I did this is I remember first time I saw Snapchat, I just said, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen," and I cannot see how God can redeem this platform now. And I think God convicted me later, where I connected with the youth pastor that was using Snapchat in a really creative way. Still don't like Snapchat. I got
Mhm.
teenagers that I'm not going to let on Snapchat, but
Sure.
but at the end of the day, I'm not going to judge it and just say
Yeah.
that it's not redeemable, because I think we've seen
Mhm.
God redeem such worse things. It's
Right. Sure.
a platform that that me as a 45-year-old, I don't get it. And I don't see myself ever spending more time on there. And I thought the same thing about TikTok, and TikTok's maybe one I've used a little bit more. And so I think we just need to be not so quick to just villainize new technologies, new platforms. And I think just seeing where are some opportunities here. And if it does need to be villainized, I need to learn about it so I can help people around me
Right.
understand how this is. Because I think at the end of the day, we as a church, that gentleman that accused me of encouraging adultery in our church because of Facebook, we needed to help people in our church have a healthy relationship with social media. That was a pastoral opportunity that we missed. And if we were going to use social media as extensively as we did, we should have been helping create better, healthy boundaries and relationships with social media. So I think we have some responsibility, and I think we have the same responsibility right now with AI. Is I think we need to talk about it. But I think we can't talk about it if we don't understand it. And so, yes, when I think about mistakes, it's that we need to. It doesn't mean we need to integrate it into every aspect of our ministries, but I think we need to begin to accept and understand technology before we just jump to villainizing them.
Yeah, and you can build it into part of your culture too, you have a unique opportunity when you are introducing new things to kind of set that mission and that vision for it. Like our mission and our vision with social media is X, Y, and Z. Are we aware that there
Right.
are pitfalls? Are we aware that there are, potential traps there? Yes, absolutely, 100%. However, this is the goal, and here are the ways that we are actively working towards avoiding pitfalls. Here's where we want to grow. Here's where there's opportunity for you to link arms with us. But I think it
Sure.
is part of what you mentioned Life Church. I mean, culturally, the church is an online church, right? And it's
Yeah.
like that's the
Right.
understanding, that's part of the draw of it, right? And so
Yep. Sure.
in the same way, if you help build it into your culture, you get to control the narrative there versus people filling in the gaps with their negative experiences.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and something I keep thinking through this whole thing is just like there is something to be said about bringing light to dark places, right? And
mm,
there's just a lot of true ministry opportunity on these platforms. Just practically speaking, what do you think are maybe some time saving uh, practices? What are some things that, if a church leader is trying to start making an impact in this area, what are some ways that they can do it without having to fill up their entire schedule, other than get some new volunteers involved?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some. This is one of the great things of AI. I think there's some tools out there that can help you create content more efficiently.
Sure.
I think there's a Chat GPT. I think is a great tool to help you. Just research different things. But when it comes to social media, I think one of the unique places that we're at in this moment is there's one form of content currently that is dominating all the platforms, and that's short form vertical video. So basically, TikTok
Yeah.
in Instagram, that's Reels, and Facebook, that's Reels, in YouTube, that's Shorts. And so if you can learn how to create short form vertical videos, so like think like 1 minute, 2 minute sermon clips. And there's tools like Sermon Shots or Opus Clips that you can take your
Right.
mhm.
video recording and just put it into that platform, and it will create Reels for you and TikToks for you. And then you could post that to the
Yes.
various platforms. And what I want to encourage is like, look, you can actually create content easier than you've ever been able to.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
now you can spend more time in the DMs and in the
That's
comments
right.
as you're engaging with people. And here's another just hack I'll give you is when you comment on people's comments, that pushes your post up the algorithm. So you're actually rewarded for responding by the algorithms. And so I would just look at how can you use video and I think as we use video, that's where these platforms have gone more
Yes.
significantly. Now, there's all kinds of other things with graphics and carousels, and they're lots of social media tips and tricks
Sure.
that we don't need to get into those weeds. But I think it's getting into the short form vertical video right now, especially with
Mm,
sermon clips, is your biggest low hanging fruit opportunity.
that's
That's
great.
very cool. Yeah. And I'm just thinking practically, you're talking a lot about the DMs, the direct messages. When you're having these conversations, would you say it's common practice to say, "Oh, this is Pastor John, responding to you,"
Yeah.
or "Hey, this is Jess, this is Kendall," or do you keep it more anonymous? Do you say this is, First Baptist social team when you respond? Like what practice do you see on that?
Yeah, we typically do it in different ways. So typically in public comments, and I'm speaking for the social media marketing agency that I helped set up. We will respond with. So even there's times where we will manage a pastor's account, but we don't want to pretend to be the pastor, on social
Mm,
media. So we'll just say, Pastor Ronnie's team. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's
mhm.
Sure. Yeah.
responding in the
Yeah.
comment. Or we will say say it's Community Bible Church, say the CBC team
Yes.
under the Community Bible Church account that's maybe publicly or probably more in the DMs is where we'll say something like Ruthie,
Mhm.
or
Yes.
Robin, where that's where we want to personalize the connection that they know they're talking to a
Yes.
person because I think where things are getting mixed up more and more too is people are using automated chatbots.
Mm,
Yes.
I love technology. I do a lot of marketing. I love automation. I
mhm.
just think we're trying to over automate church ministry though sometimes, and this is maybe
Mm,
me getting into my 40s and feeling a little older
sure.
with new
Mm,
Yeah.
technology. But I think when we're deepening relationships, I just don't think chatbots are the best way to deepen relationships. I think they're a great way to get somebody a quick resource and a quick response. And I think it's almost like an away message of here's a quick response, but a person is going to be responding to you as soon as a person is available, and then a
100%.
person actually responds. And so I think we need to be not so quick to just chatbot everything. I think we
Yes.
need to be as quick as possible to create human connections with people because when somebody is in our DMs wanting to communicate with us, man, when we can create person to person
Mm,
engagement and connection, I think that's the core of what we do as a church. And so I want to see that happen as soon as possible and as much as possible.
I
so
don't want to take
good.
up too much time asking this question, but do you have a resource to help people practically do this? So, like Kendall knows, like I'm very much a process person. So I love this idea and this concept and
Yeah,
this discipline to start implementing at your church. However, it is a 24-hour
yeah,
open opportunity for
yep,
ministry.
yep,
So without, diving into details now, again, I don't want to take up too much time, but do you
yeah,
provide resources on how to actually like what does it look like to staff, you know, digital ministry, social media ministry? What does
yeah,
it look like to, empower people with maybe some talking points or where are the boundaries here? If someone starts asking me about real personal stuff, how do we handle
yep,
that? Do you have
yep.
practical, ways of helping churches structure this ministry?
Yeah, so what I would encourage you to do because this gets really unique church to church for
Right.
two things.
Sure.
One, this is where I think ChatGPT is fantastic. I prefer an AI tool called Claude,
Mhm.
and we love to just train Claude, give it a lot of help, and then literally just ask it, "Will you create a response guide for how we should
Mm,
better respond?" Tangibly from a technology perspective, if you want to get into some automation,
Sure.
Mini Chat or Chat Fuel are some of the more popular response tools. I'd be cautious with how far you
Sure.
take those from a layer standpoint. And then the just practical thing that I would encourage people to do is I'm not engaged. As I created a marketing agency called Amplify Social Media years back when I just clients would tell me that I was consulting, but I don't have the capacity to do it. Can you just do it for me? And so
mm.
I built an agency to help do it for them. I'm not, if you want to use services, awesome, great. But you go to amplifysocial.media, tell them Nils sent me. Can you send me a response guide? And they'll know exactly what you're talking about. But we
I
have a
love
response guide that we help build out for churches, and they'll just give you a template to use that will help you, build out of like if somebody says this, do this. If somebody says this, do this. And it's how we help volunteers get started and how to respond effectively to social media. Because so much of what we do is we help churches and ministries create their content
Yes.
distribution, but we
right.
want you to do your ministry and your response.
Mhm.
Yes.
But sometimes you need that like how do I structure how to respond when somebody
Yes.
says this or when somebody says this and here's maybe some scriptures that you want to
Yeah,
have on
it's good.
hand because this is just like the people that are ready to pray with somebody in the front of church at the end of church.
Yes.
You want them well trained in
Right.
resources. What do you do when somebody says, I'm thinking about, I'm contemplating, something very dark,
Yeah,
or I had this
Yeah.
situation, and you want to be ready for those hard situations. So you want your volunteers to feel trained and ready. So that my team's got a resource that I think would be very helpful for them. But I
awesome.
wish
Yeah.
I'd need to put it on my website. But for the efficiency of this, we go to amplifysocial.media, and I'll make sure they know
I
to
wanna
be
send the
looking
right
for
place.
responses
Yeah,
on
and
that.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll link up that website as
Mhm.
well.
yeah,
No,
Yeah.
that's great, and, have coming up with something, and I love that you recommended, that it goes varies from church to church, and just use, even use something as simple as those AI tools to, come up with something that's unique to your specific ministry.
Yeah.
Well, something as we kind of close up today, I know that we're going we're going to hit our final 5 rapid round, but before we do, one of the big themes for our podcast is talking about healthy churches, healthy
Mhm.
leaders.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just hear, in your opinion, what would you say is one essential component of a healthy church?
Yeah, when I hear that term, I think of my mentor. One of the reasons we live in New York City is because I started working with a guy named Pete Scazzaro, and Pete has transformed my life in a lot of ways. And one of the things he'll often say is who you are is more important than what you do.
Mm,
And healthy churches are led by healthy pastors. And I
wow.
think practically, I always recommend people go listen to Pete's podcast. I think it's called the Emotionally Healthy Leadership Podcast. His books are fantastic, but he
Great resource.
just his content is just so good. But it is I in my years in ministry, I often became obsessed with what I did, and I saw my
Mm.
identity in what I did. And I think we can often just lose focus on uh, being who God desires us to be, and then letting what we do be an overflow of who
Yeah.
we are. And so I think we need our churches cannot be healthy if we first aren't healthy. So yeah, that would be the
That's a good
recommendation. But
word for today.
I am just repeating Pete Scazzaro though, like directly. Like his stuff will transform anybody who hasn't already leaned into
Our,
it.
our church staff has gone through that book, and amazing resource for our team. So yeah,
Good.
that's awesome. Well, for our final 5, Jess, do you want to take them through these questions really quickly?
Yeah, happy to. Okay, what is one book on this subject or something similar that you would recommend to church leaders?
Yeah. So Jay Cranda put out a book. He's the online pastor at Saddleback Church called Online Church is Not the Answer.
Okay.
And it is a great book that I think even if you're not doing online church, online ministry, I think every church leader, pastor needs to read this and just get the unique perspective around this from Jay's 15 years of experience in the space.
I
That's
love that you brought
amazing.
that up, because we actually had him on the show a few episodes ago, and he
Love
shared
it.
about his book and was able to share some of the things. So yes, we can.
Jay is a legend.
Yes, it
I'm
was a
glad to hear
great
that.
episode. You got to check it out. And yes, definitely dive into that book. That's an
Yeah.
awesome recommendation.
Very cool. Okay. What's the last thing that you have listened to on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you stream music? Please be
Yeah. So
honest.
I don't listen to music, and like my kids give me a hard time. Well, I've got a teenage daughter, so we got a lot of Taylor Swift playing in our house,
Oh,
and we have a
yes.
record player just for Taylor albums.
Oh, man.
But I did and I'm an audiobook and podcast listener.
Yeah.
But my buddy Trent Dunham, my former boss, his son just released an album, and I listened to it this morning. So I listened to music for the first time today, and it's called the band is Testify. It is TSTFY. And I think it's like All For You, maybe. But
Okay.
they or Burn For You, maybe is the song. But it was a
Mm,
great song. And I encourage everyone to go listen to it. So Blake Dunham is his name, but I think it's just Testify. It's the name of their brand
Okay.
on Spotify.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's a really
good shout
nice little
out.
shout out. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, what is your favorite piece of technology or software right now?
Oh, so and it's kind of funny. I don't know. So I walk to work. I've got a half-mile walk between my office and my apartment, and I just have a conversation with ChatGPT the whole way there and back, and throughout the day. Now I don't know if anybody uses ChatGPT voice, but I just talk to ChatGPT all day, every day now,
Really?
and it is amazing and almost weird because I just have this conversation with this not real woman in my app and she has the best advice for me about everything. It's all literally like talk through like my calendar. I'm like, I've got this meeting. You have any advice for this meeting or think about doing this? And
Really?
I'm gonna, post them in it. And she and I call her she. She probably I don't know what else to call pronouns around Chat GPT, but it's a female voice, and it is so helpful for me. But she knows like that everything about me because I've given so much access to
Yeah,
my world and life, and it's amazing. Yeah.
that's
I got
wild.
I've got to tell you this. Just a few days ago, I was packing for a trip, and I didn't want to bring all of our camera equipment, and so I was packing up in a hurry, turned on
Yeah.
that voice chat for that, and I said, "Listen, I'm packing. These are the lenses I have in the kit. This is what I'm trying to do. What should I bring in the pack?" And she literally was like, "Oh, you definitely should pack this one and this one and this one." I was like, "This is the best," because I'm like running around throwing stuff
Yes.
in my bag. So yes, that's a
Guys,
great tool.
this is blowing
It's
my mind.
amazing.
Listen, I use Siri for everything because I tend to forget things. Also, mom,
Yeah.
work, all the things, a lot of hats. And you guys are inspiring me, but I need it
The
to.
ChatGPT woman is way better than Siri.
I know, but can she set reminders in my Google Calendar? The answer to that
I
is
think
no.
you can
So
pair Siri and ChatGPT, right? Isn't that a
I don't
thing? I
know.
don't know. I haven't
don't
done
know.
it. I haven't done it.
Guys, okay,
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
find
move
out for
on.
you,
This
Jess.
is blowing my mind.
Siri's old news, though. Siri's old
Yeah,
news.
well, I know, but she's still my best pal. She helps me
There you
remember
go.
everything. Okay, so quote or advice that has stuck with you over the years.
That's I think I have three quotes on the side of my wall here. One is the Steve Jobs quote: "The only people who are going to change the world are the ones crazy enough to do it." And then I have the great commandment: "Love God, love others." And then, but probably most importantly, is the Great Commission. And so when I think about the conversation we had today of go into all the world, and today the internet is part of our world,
That's
and
right.
so I think it's just we need to listen. I think closer to the Great Commission and go into all the world and be reminded of that. And I need to be reminded that I need to go into all the world and talk to the guy that made my sandwich at the bodega, this afternoon, that I often don't want to tell about Jesus because I'm uncomfortable with it. And I need to also integrate Jesus into my social media, engagement. And so it's the calling is to make disciples in all the world. And so we need to lean into that calling.
I love that. Good reminder. One thing to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
So I would say be willing and open to try new things. We talked earlier about how we demonize, new technologies, and I think that we need to in this day things are moving so quickly. We need to be willing to try new things. I worked with a lot of ministries that went all in with MySpace and didn't want to jump to Facebook, and because they had built so much on MySpace, and then there's leaders that wanted to get into other platforms. They got in early, but we don't want to stop doing things either. So we need to be willing to try new things, but we also need to be willing to stop doing old things, and we need to be willing to stop doing new things too, because some of the new things we're going to do aren't going to work. And so I think we just have to have just a culture of adaptation and adoption, and also a culture of deletion. What do we need to delete that we've either always done or started doing, and it's really not good ROI because we can't do everything.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow, that's a good reminder for today.
Mm-hmm.
Nils, this has been such a valuable conversation. I feel like I've can't wait to go back and listen to it again. I mean, just taking a lot of notes over here. I know that people will want to follow you and stay connected with your work. What's the best way for them to do it?
Yes, I'm on social media. So you just follow me, Nils Smith, Nils Smith. And then my newest role is with an organization called Faith Driven Entrepreneur, Faith Driven Movements. It's kind of the parent organization. But we have a site that we launched about 6 months ago called Pastors and Entrepreneurs. And it's our job. Everything we put out is free. But we want to help churches better serve entrepreneurs in their church. So if you go to pastorsandentrepreneurs.org, we got a great research study I'd encourage you to download from Barna about how basically what is the relationship and maybe even perspective of entrepreneurs of the church and of the church and entrepreneurs. And I think when pastors and entrepreneurs work together, I believe we're going to see greater kingdom impact in our world. And so we're leaning into that, but go and get some of those free resources. I think you'll find them helpful and beneficial. It's been so moving to me that I quit everything else I was doing to go all in with this movement and organization. And so I just keep encouraging. And the people often ask me, is there a catch? And I promise you, unless I'm being, the eyes are being, my eyes are being covered by a catch that I don't see on the inside of the organization. 6 months in, I don't see a catch. We are a fully funded nonprofit that's just giving away resources to raise up entrepreneurs in the church. And so,
Very
I'd
cool.
love for you to check out those resources.
Very cool. And we'll be sure to link all of those resources and things into our show notes. And so encourage everyone to go and to check those out. Nils, thank you so much for this. This has been amazing. I loved being able to have this conversation with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Jess, thank you so much for hanging out with us and bringing so much good stuff to this combo too.
Anytime. I love it.
This is a great conversation. I love this topic just in general. So again, I can't wait to go back and give it a listen myself. For all of our listeners at home, I would just say, if this episode has encouraged you, if inspired you to go and to try to spread the word digitally to your online community, I would just say, would you consider sharing this with a friend that's serving in ministry? Help us spread the word, because we want to get this into as many ears of church leaders as we can. And it really does make a difference when you share. Hit that follow button. We want to make sure that you stay in the loop. And until next time, keep leading well, and we'll see you next time on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.